Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Welcome to It's Still Real to Me. I'm your host, John Kuchar, aka Johnny Fashion. With me back again is Big Bad Harmon. You had last week off, man.
I did.
Yeah, but you're back.
Thanks for bringing me up to your new pad up here.
I know. In the flesh. You don't come up here very often.
That's because you're 2 hours away now.
I know. Sorry, man. I'm super excited about today's episode. I'm really excited. We have an awesome guest today. You guys will know him as WCW's Glacier, but Mr. Ray Lloyd is on the phone. Ray, how's it going today, my man?
Oh, it's going great, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, we definitely appreciate you coming on. This is fantastic. Harmon and I, back when we were in high school, that was, the Monday Night Wars was going on. We were everybody was watching wrestling back then, and we're just huge fans. We were big WCW guys. For as much as there was the Hogans and the Savages, taking the main spotlight there. We tuned into WCW because of guys like yourself, guys like the Eddie Guerreros, the cruiserweights. We loved kind of like the mid-card guys that really worked their tails off. So that's kind of where our interests were.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, man.
we were always kind of of the mind that at that time, WWF had the better storylines, but WCW had the better wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that was one thing that I think that we, the difference is, I heard Vince say this one time, and it really is true, especially in, is that, and I think this is why that was the case, was, WCW was a television company that happened to have a wrestling show, TBS, which was WCW. WWF or WWE now was a wrestling company that happened to have a TV show, and so that's a big difference, is that one was just a part of a big company, whereas the other one was all that company, and so they've been doing it a lot longer, and the thing is, of course, to hear them tell the story now, they were better in every facet of the game, but that's, as we like to say, the winners get to, basically get to tell the story. So they, in the big picture, they won, and no one really disputes that. And but it was a heck of a lot of fun. I tell you, man, it was a great time to be a wrestler, and a great time to be a fan too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we were talking about that earlier. Like, as good of a time as it was to be a fan, I mean, you guys must have had so much fun being wrestlers. So, so sticking with the WCW thing, you made your Glacier debut. We know that you had a short stint in WCW before the Glacier character came upon, but your debut with as Glacier and your feud with Canyon as Mortis, we were both really big fans of that. So much as to play you guys in the WCW NWO Revenge game. We always chose you guys because we thought you guys as characters were really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit your take on that whole feud and your debut and everything like that?
It was like I said earlier, such a great time to be there. I'm so fortunate to come along right at that time. I signed in January of '96, which is right about the time Scott and Kevin were jumping ship, and the very first little hints of the NWO were starting, right around then. And so, but yeah, the great thing about it was that it's one thing I tell some of young wrestlers is that my overnight success was something that happened over a 9-year period. I worked really hard to get to that point. So did Canyon, and and that's we were rewarded finally for doing something we love, because we got to the point where we were pretty good at it. And but then there's a lot of guys that are really good at it. A lot of success in anything, especially anything in sports and entertainment, or however you want to look at it. It's definitely good timing and putting the work in. And one of my favorite things in the world is, everybody's heard the saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. One of my college coaches told me one time, there was an extra part of that. He said, it's not necessarily what you know, it's not who you know, it's who's willing to say they know you. And we worked hard to the point that we're finally, Paige and it's no secret, Paige and Eric were good friends back then, and Paige is still, I think, the hardest working guy in the period. But we impressed Paige enough to where he was willing to basically put his name out there for us, and that's how it really got started. And for me, it started in like I said, January '96, and had a long meeting with Eric, which was put together by Paige, and he grilled me up one side and down the other over dinner about martial arts, about wrestling, whatever. And finally, after about a 3-hour, at the time it was apparently an interview, which I didn't realize, he basically said, I want to sign you to a contract for WCW. And at that time, I didn't know that he had already been approached by the company to basically come up with something that would possibly mirror the popularity of the Mortal Kombat, video game, and the movie had just come out and all that. So I had no idea that was swirling around his head. And I remember him saying to me, and at the time, I had a really, really good job. I didn't teach in school, but I had recently went to work with one of my mentors, Chip Smith. He became the athletic director of the Atlanta Athletic Club, which is one of the most prestigious country clubs in America. And he brought me on as his fitness director. And just to give you an idea how prestigious it is, I was there right before they celebrated their 100-year anniversary. The first athletic director was John Heisman, the person the Heisman Trophy is named after. So This is like one of those places. So I wasn't, even though I loved wrestling and I wanted to make my mark in wrestling, I wasn't going to walk away from that gig, just for, on a wing and a prayer. But I remember, I told Eric about that earlier in the conversation. He said, "So you still, you're working your full-time job right now, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're still taking wrestling bookings on the independent level?" I said, "Yep." He said, "Well, I want to pay you to disappear from the independent wrestling scene." And I looked right at him. I said, "I can do that." But really the first few months, probably in May, I didn't even have to quit my job. I worked my job, and we, of course, were meeting and starting, the drawing board process of putting stuff together. But I think Kanye, so I got started, and there's a whole lot more to the story than that. But that's really the very, nuts and bolts of how it actually got started from the very beginning.
Nice. It was a favorite of ours. The cool thing that we liked about Cannon, we thought that his moveset was really, really innovative. He did a lot of really cool things. Obviously it's sad and tragic that he passed away. I know you guys were good buddies.
Yeah.
Do you have a Canyon story at all for us? Anything fun, maybe out on the road or anything like that?
Oh man,
yeah.
God, where do I start?
Yeah, I know, right?
Wherever you want.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, some of them it would probably best not tell. I think I'm trying to think of what would be one that would be relevant to you guys' show and everything. I will tell you this. Tell you a couple things about Chris. The things that I admired about him is he absolutely just loved, like me, he loved the wrestling business. I mean, it was his life, and we were fans first. I've heard people say the wrestling business, once you become a wrestler, you get into the business, you're not a fan anymore. And I've always respectfully disagreed with that because I'm still a fan. I was I made an appearance at the big Wrestlecade Fan Fest this weekend in Winston-Salem, South Carolina. I was walking around like a candy store, So, but Canyon, he was such a hard worker. I mean, he and I both. This was our break, and we knew that this made shot like this was probably never going to come by again. So we needed to make the most of it, and so we worked really, really hard to make sure that we were doing everything we could to make this happen. And I'm trying to think. Well, this is one story that this is actually it's not one that's necessarily a funny story, but it was funny to us afterwards. But our very first pay-per-view match was on the uncensored pay-per-view, and we was doing stuff. The No Rhyme or Reason match was called a martial arts. Martial arts rules, but somehow the martial arts rules were never explained. but we're doing this match, and we knew, okay, it's the first time on pay-per-views. They kind of had to build up and everything. People wanted to see what we're about. And Eric's whole thing was, he wanted us to be like the first heavyweights who really moved like cruiserweights out there. And so, kind of like a video game come to life. And you can go back and watch this on the tape. There was one part where I shot him off the ropes, and I did like this forward roll that came up and hit him in midair. And then later in the match, we went for it again, and where I followed him into the ropes. This time he held on, he just swung his leg around and his shin hit me right between the eyes and literally just knocked me out. And and you can hit, you know, when people get hit in the head, you know that really just that definitive thud, you know, when you get hit in the head really hard.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Then you kind of go like, oh man, I might knocked him out. You know what I mean? Well, it knocked me out for a second, and I remember we both went down, and Mickey J was the ref, and he comes up to me and he goes, and I'm laying there like just, you know, trying to gather my thoughts, and he says, are you okay? And I said, no, I'm not okay. He just knocked me out. If I did, I'd love that. I was only out for a couple of seconds, I just said, tell him to keep selling, because I got to keep selling for a minute. And I looked over at him and kind of made eye contact with him, and he just kind of like nodded, like, all right, I'll stay here for a little bit. But that was our intro into like, okay, this is how hard we're going to bring it, you know, because we care about having that kind of match. You know, we respect, you know, the business and respect the fans enough to give them everything we had, you know, and I can honestly say, you know, I had the best matches of my career with Chris, and I don't ever remember, I mean, in the dozens and dozens of matches we had, I don't ever remember us having a bad match, ever. I don't even remember us coming close to having a bad match. So, but that was, you know, that was just, you know, you don't get that all the time in this business. but yeah, he was a great guy. I miss him every day. I so wish he was still here, because me and my best buddy, Luther Biggs, who was in WCW, went to the power plant. We're all in our little clique. Our clique was called the FOP, the Friends of Paige. And it was all the guys that Paige kind of helped get a job. But, you know, we still, I mean, we keep Canyon's memory very much alive. I mean, there's not probably a day that doesn't go about it. We don't say some quote or some saying, or at least say it in the Canyon voice. I mean, so he's very much alive in our eyes and our world.
Yeah, anytime I hear somebody say like, "What about me?" I always think about what about Canyon. You know, like that whole gimmick that he had. It's like a memory that I have. So I was like, oh man, yeah.
Yeah, he's and you know, like I said, you know, he's thank goodness, you know, he worked hard enough and was recognized enough to where he, you know, he'll live on through YouTube and stuff like that. But yeah, he's really, really missed. I mean, I really wish that he was still here. I really do.
Yeah.
Now, Ray, back to the character. Did Eric Bischoff have a lot of input into that character, or did Dusty Rhodes help with it at all, or Dallas, or?
You know, that's a really good question, and the story behind it is, which was probably one of the funnest parts of the whole Blood Runs Cold thing when it first came out. You got to understand, this was early '96, so the internet was just in the infant stages, and I mean, God, how old does that make us sound? That we're talking about the internet was just getting started.
Yeah, we know.
We face that every day.
You know, the wrestling sheets, you know, aka the dirt sheets, they were still being mailed out back then. You know?
Yeah.
But you know, that was a big thing. Eric, that was the main thing right out of the gate, that he was like, I want this thing to be top secret. I don't want anybody to know about it. I want to really get the interest peaked about it. So I happen to know a friend of mine that I'd got to know through working through the entertainment industry was a guy named Andre Friedez, who was a special effects artist right there in Atlanta, in Marietta, Georgia. He was a branch of AFX Studios out of LA that did, you know, special effects for TV and film, mostly film. So I had put him in touch with Eric. Eric hired him, was really impressed with him, hired him to be the guy who would take the whole concept from drawing board to finished product. And he still works a lot with WWE, but and I think at the end of the day, he made more money than any of us. But the really cool part was that Eric, you know, once he saw Andre's studio, he said, "Man, this is like our place, you know, our place where we can all gather and we can create this, you know, this persona." So Eric kind of got in this mindset of having these late night, you know, what we would call the midnight meetings, you know, and he would set the day, and we'd all show up there real late at night, and it was me and Paige and Eric and Canyon, and of course eventually Jim Mitchell came on, there was James Vandenberg, Ernest Miller came on, and then of course Brian Clark, and that was probably the coolest part of the whole thing, was we would meet there late at night, and we would just, you know, we'd figure out the next step, and then figure out the next step, and you know, there was a lot of eating, a lot of drinking went on during that time. But it's funny, you know, it's funny when you throw in a few beers back, what kind of creative ideas you can come up with. But you know, it was really cool because a lot of the rumor mills starting to swirl. Like, everybody started to think like, you know, like that Glacier was maybe Bret Hart, was maybe so-and-so, was maybe so-and-so. You know, of course, no one knew who the heck I was. So, you know, I was never considered, you know, to be who they were thinking it might be. But yeah, that was a really cool part of it was, when I look back on it, like I said, that's one of the funnest parts was when we had those meetings. There were times when there were meetings at other places that Eric wanted to go to, and sometimes there were nightclubs, sometimes there were gentlemen's clubs. But it was more like that. And a lot of it was more like working around Eric's schedule. Like, you know, he was like, hey, I'm finishing up at the office at 8 o'clock. Meet me at 9 o'clock here. You know, we'd be like, all right, cool, you know. And so it was, sometimes it was just a matter of convenience. But yeah, it was really cool to have it all come together like that. And really just see the whole evolution of it was, because it had never been done before. Never been done before where a company put that kind of money behind, you know, a whole, you know, angle really, and the wrestling gimmicks that were going to be created, you know, literally from the drawing board to the finished product. It had never been done. That kind of money had never been put behind anything. Certainly, there had never been an entrance like, you know, the one that I was handed. You know, now, I mean, it's pretty common to have an interest like that. But you think back in 1996, you know, Hogan, Flair, nobody had this kind of interest. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, but it was an awful lot of pressure too. A lot of pressure.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
You set the bar for cool entrances.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. You know, and I always say, because listen, I'm the first one to know that. I mean, you know, I've heard everything under the sun about it. I mean, there's people who, thank God, I think most people seem to be fans of the Glacier gimmick. There's people who love it to death. There's people that absolutely hated it, you know, but that's pretty much anything in wrestling.
Oh, yeah. People are going to go one way or the other.
I always say, you know, if you don't believe that that's the case, just look at John Cena. You got people who love John Cena. You got people who hate him. You know, yeah. So at the same time,
and we change our opinion on a weekly basis on him.
Yeah, true, yeah, exactly. And that's what I always tell people. I say, look, you know, whether you loved or liked or disliked or loved or hated the Glacier gimmick, it was pretty hard to miss it in the mid to late '90s. You know, simply because of that entrance. You know, and you know, and there's an old thing, you know, that there can be a lot of number ones, but there can only be one first. And that's what I take a lot of pride in. I was the first guy to ever have really, you know, this mega entrance that traveled with me, you know, and so that's one of the things I can hang my hat on. And the other just being the fact that I'm 28 years in the wrestling business and I'm still getting in the ring and I love every minute of it, you know, and you know, there's not a lot of people out there who can say they've done something for almost 30 years that they absolutely loved. So I get up every day. I thank God every day that I've been able to do this. And, you know, and the people that go, oh, the Glacier thing was just a flash in the pan. I had somebody say that to me recently. I said, well, you know what? You know, that flash in the pan has paid me some pretty good money for almost 20 years now.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
But you know, you always have your critics. So, but, you know, and I just take that with a grain of salt and keep moving forward.
Sure. Yeah, man. Yeah, we love it. So obviously, like the Glacier character was, you know, heavily influenced, you know, by the Mortal Kombat, very martial arts flair to the character. WCW back in that time, like they had a lot of guys that kind of had that martial arts flair, or at least a martial arts background in real life. You know, yourself, Ernest Cat Miller, Jerry Flynn, even Eric Bischoff, you know, brought that into a storyline with himself. Did you find a connection at all with some of those guys, like having similar backgrounds with martial arts? Did you guys make a connection at all?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Because, you know, it's like a kind of a community within itself, you know. And I can tell you honestly, like me and Ernest, when we first met, I mean, literally with each other, man, we just clicked, and we've always clicked. I had a buddy of mine who's a professional camera guy that came up to WrestleCade to just film some footage, and Ernest and I were sharing the same table with Garrett Bischoff, and you know. At the end of the day, he just looked at me and he said, man, you guys are like brothers. He goes, you guys pick on each other, you laugh at everything together. And I was like, yeah. I said, we always did like that from the first meeting we ever had. We just clicked. And, you know, and I think that is some of the martial arts stuff like that. But, yeah, you know, guys that would come in that would have, you know, that in common. But, yeah, you mentioned Jerry Flynn. I mean, Jerry's one of the guys that, very, very talented, you know, athlete. One of the guys in WCW. And I could tell he was frustrated at times because of that, because he, you know, I mean, I could see it sometimes on his face, like he's like, I'm as good as those guys, if not better. Like, why am I not getting the push? You know, and my whole thing was, I don't know, but don't blame me. Don't kick my head off. You know? I'm not the one making the decision, but I tell you what, I mean, I look back at, you know, me and Ernest both wrestled Jerry several times, and I always enjoyed wrestling because I knew Jerry was going to bring it, you know, and it was, you kind of had those other options, you know, with someone like him because of fact that he could kick and he could jump around and he could do some things that other wrestlers couldn't do. So it really did open up our matches to a lot more flexibility of what we could do, which was nice. Eric always loved that.
No, yeah. How what was the transition like from martial arts to pro wrestling? I know that, you know, before the Glacier gimmick, like you had a run in WCW, but I'm not sure if you were doing more like any martial arts stuff in your moveset or anything like that. But just in general,
oh no,
yeah, martial arts.
Oh no, I was totally, you know, as the term would be, that I was a jobber early on.
Yeah.
I was a faceless opponent, you know.
Yeah.
I went out there and I knew what I was supposed to do, and I tried to do it as good as I could. But even when I had a very successful run on the indie circuit before even going to WCW, and I traveled back and forth to Japan and wrestled all over there. And then when I wrestled in UWFI over there, it was pitched more as a shoot, and for the most part, you know, it pretty much was. I mean, there were some guidelines, you know, but I don't want to really give that away, because I think it's still kind of cool that people, they can watch tapes of that stuff and they still can't really figure it out, which I think is kind of cool. But
that is cool.
But you know, so I got to use a lot of what I knew there. But because a lot of the American wrestlers that would come in didn't have that. They had strong wrestling backgrounds, but very few of them knew how to kick and you know, do the stuff from the martial arts side of things. That's where I had a big advantage. But you know, as far as wrestling in the States and the indie level, I really didn't use anything at all, because it was very, very hard to get in the ring and do that kind of, do kicks and stuff like that with people who don't really know how to do that. And that's not taking anything away from anybody. But so I used very little, and that's really the first time that I caught Page's mind, his attention to actually put me in touch with Eric, because, you know, I said to him, I said, hey, you know, I'm thinking about adding some martial arts, you know, stuff to my wrestling gimmick. And he was like, we were eating pizza at the time, I'll never forget. And he goes, bro, that'd be great if you knew some of that crap, but Page didn't say crap, he said the other word. and so I proceeded to tell him, like, hey, this is since I was like 15 years old, and this is something I'm real serious about. He was like, we know Eric's into that. And that's how that first meeting actually came to pass. But so yeah, you know, I never really used it a lot. And when we came in, that's why at first, you know, later on, like a couple years down the road, you know, Arn had, you know, shared some stuff with me that they didn't really know how to book us, because we were so unique at the time. They didn't know who to put us with and who not to put us with, you know, who could work with us and couldn't. So that was a big headache for them to try to figure out, which one easy way to resolve it would have been to come to us, but somehow they didn't do that.
There was just so many guys back then too. I mean,
yeah.
such a loaded roster.
Right, and we certainly were just you know, one part of the whole, you know, scheme of things. But yeah, a lot of the guys, I mean, I had to really adjust each match depending on what they were comfortable with. Some of them were more comfortable with a lot of the kicks, some of them weren't. So you know, like to this day, like Bobby Eaton is a dear friend of mine, and we had a match early on, and we had a miscue, and I really tagged Bobby, you know, in the mouth, you know, with a kick, and to this day, I still apologize for it.
Sorry for that fat potato.
Every time they see me, like, guards his mouth. But yeah, so it was. There was some unique challenges, but for the most part, once I think that's the reason why that they booked us together and booked us a lot with Jerry Flynn and guys like that, so people could see that, hey, these guys are not dangerous, you know, that they're not unsafe, you know, that they can do this and make this work. And, you know, and it just became where, like, it's like anything else in wrestling, you know, you can kick, you know, quote unquote safe areas, you know, and still make it look great for the fan, but not, you know, not give someone a concussion, you know. So yeah, it was a learning process. It really was. It was a whole evolution, especially in that first year.
Ray, moving along after WCW, did you start a promotion with Dusty Rhodes?
You know, no, I did not. I mean, Dusty, in 2000, when I was still with WCW, Dusty left, and ironically, man, I grew up. I mean, Dusty was you know, like so many guys growing up in the South, and I was a huge. I mean, he was one of my idols. I mean, he's one of my heroes. I mean, I was fortunate to grow up with great parents and a great household. I have a twin brother. My dad was a wrestling fan. My mom was not, and still is not. But you know, my dad was, and we watched wrestling with my dad, and we would go to the Jacksonville Coliseum Dusty Rhodes and Evil Knievel, you know. And so when I got the chance to meet Dusty in WCW, I mean, I almost didn't know how to handle it. And ironically, even I didn't. During my first few years, I didn't really talk to Dusty that much, just because I was so intimidated by him. And then, but through Dallas, I mean, Paige really mentored Dallas, so you know, I started to kind of get to know Dusty through Dallas, and then once he left, well, he actually oversaw when we did the brief run with the Coach Bud Stern stuff that I did in between my 2 runs as Glacier. Dusty shot all the vignettes for that, so that's when I really started to first get to know him, and then and we kind of started to build a friendship then. And when he left, the way I was understood was he called Dallas and said, "Look, you know, I need somebody that I can trust to be my right hand guy." And you know, Dallas basically said, "Well, you know, call Ray. You know, I mean, he's who I would recommend." So Dusty called me, and I'll never forget. I was pulling up in my driveway of my house, and phone rings, and my cell phone. He goes, "Raymond, this is American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. I got something I need to talk to you about." And first of all, I felt like I was being called to the principal's office. I was like, "Oh my God, you know, Dusty's coming. What did I do wrong?" You know. And you know, I went and I met with him, and he told me his plans. He said it was always his dream to start his own promotion, and he said, "Yeah, I want you to help me do that." And so at the time, he didn't really give me the title of like his right hand guy, but that's really what I became, and I say that with a lot of pride. He started his wrestling school. I oversaw that with him. When we started, the whole time we ran shows for almost 4 years, I was the guy that ran the locker room. I mean, I was the guy that did everything. You know, Dusty delegated to me, and then if anything needed to be delegated, then I was the one that delegated it past that. But I traveled with him a lot. It was one of the most unbelievable experiences of my life. I cherish it. Sometimes I even say, I go back and forth, but the time I spent in Turnbuckle after WCW was maybe even more fun than WCW, simply because I was working with my childhood hero, and I got a chance to get to know him up close and personal. And through that, I got to know Michelle, his wife. I got to know Dustin even better. I'd already kind of knew Dustin, but I really got to know Cody, and I got to know Kristen and Teal, his 2 daughters, and I just got to know the family, you know, and that was just a really cool thing. And when I got married back in 2002, he was a groomsman at my wedding. You know, and very few people can say that they had their childhood hero, that they ever meet their childhood hero, much less you make them a groomsman at your wedding. You know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. But and I can honestly tell you, the Turnbuckle years were just absolutely amazing, because I don't know what I would have done if he wouldn't have been there. Because when WCW was just gone in an instant one day, I shudder to think about how that transition would have been if I'd had to go back to just nothing but indie shows. You know, because coming from being in, where you're wrestling in front of 20,000 people to wrestling in front of 200, I would have done it, and I did. But you know, it was still just transitioning into with Turnbuckle and with Dusty. It was just, God, I don't know. It was such a cool ride. And then when Dusty got the opportunity to go to TNA and take over the book there, he brought me with him as an agent, which just spoke volumes to me about his confidence in me. And so, yeah, I mean, and of course, with his passing earlier this year, just like everybody else, it devastated me too. And I don't know if I'll ever get over it, because I got to know the man more than I did, the wrestler, and that's something that I will really cherish forever.
You mentioned Cody. We're big Cody Rhodes fans. We're big
Stardust me
fans.
Too.
That guy, the level of dedication to that gimmick is phenomenal.
Yeah, we love Stardust.
And it's kind of it's almost similar to the Mortis and the Glacier character, because it's just so out there. It's very comic book, video game, and he kills it.
Yeah. Do you watch the product still? Like, do you watch WWE or TNA or anything still today?
I watch as much as I can.
Yeah.
Hold on one second. My dog is barking. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem.
Of course, he's barking another dog outside.
All good, man.
Yeah, I watch as much as I can, and I wish I was able to watch more. I really do, and I'm actually making it a point to try to start watching more. For several reasons. I can get into that a little bit later, but I think the world of Cody. I mean, I've known Cody since he was a kid, and one of my very best friends is a guy named Steve Day. Steve was Cody's wrestling coach in high school, and coached him at 2 state championships his junior senior year, and at Lassiter High School in Marietta, that. So, and that's where Dusty and Cody and Michelle, they all live. So, yeah, I got to know Dusty on that level because of my friendship with Steve Day, Coach Day. And, but yeah, I mean, Cody is an incredibly talented performer. And I personally believe that Cody could have a career in acting, in business, if you wanted him. He's a professionally trained actor. He went to L.A. He studied under Howard Fine, which is the guy that Page studied under. Howard Fine's one of the finest acting teachers in L.A. And so he's Cody's just so talented,
He's done some acting too, right? He was on an episode of Warehouse 13. And
yeah.
You've done some acting as well. I saw you on Burn Notice, the season finale of Burn Notice for the first season.
Yeah, I did the season finale of Burn Notice. I did episode of Meet the Browns, one of the Tyler Perry shows. I just moved back to Atlanta recently, and I've started, really diving into doing more acting. And I just had an audition today. I actually had auditioned for a new Jennifer Aniston film that's going to be speaking here in Atlanta. So I'm really hoping I land that role.
Nice. Yeah, that would be awesome. I think we all wish that we would get that role with Jennifer Aniston.
I told John I was going to ask this. What was it like punching Bruce Campbell in the face and
on Burn Notice?
Burn Notice.
I tell you what, I'm such a huge Bruce Campbell fan. I mean, I worked the whole week on that series, that episode, and I didn't tell him till the last day how big of a fan I was. I read his book. He has the best title in the world for his book. It's called "If Chins Could Kill." I'm just a huge fan of Evil Dead series and all that, and I'm a geek for all that stuff. And so the first scene that we shot, the first day, is a scene where we've got him in the hull of the boat, and he's zip tied to this chair, and I'm beating the heck out of it. I'm just punching him. We're trying to get information out of him or whatever. And so I'm just doing what I'm told. I'm just like, at that point, I'm just trying not to mess up. And after about like the fourth take, I keep noticing, because it was where I had to hit him twice. I hit him once, and he'd say something like, oh, that's a good hit. The guy followed through. That pissed me off. I hit him again. And so, but after the second punch, I'd always noticed that he would somehow spit out what looked like a tooth, and I was like, holy cow, how's he doing? Because he's zip tied down. I mean, his hands are zip tied down. And so after about the fourth take, I walked over to him. I just got the courage, and I said, hey, because I introduced myself at that point, obviously. And I said, Bruce, man, every time I do that second punch, of course, it's all camera angles. I'm not even coming close to hitting him. And I said, no, she keeps spitting out what looks like a tooth. I go, how in the world are you doing that? And what are you doing? And he just looked at me and winked. He said, after the next take, I'll show you. So we did another one. And then the makeup girl comes in, and she's touching him up and everything, touching the bruises up and whatever. And then she opens up this little Ziploc pouch and takes out this little white something. I don't know what it was. And then I found out later what Bruce had done on his own was he took some Altoids and he cut them in half, and it looked just like a little tooth. And the girl would give him one, put it in his mouth, and he would just put it on the side of between his cheek and his gum there. And then after he'd sell the second punch, he'd just kind of dig it out with his tongue and just spit it out. And I thought, now that is a pro.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I had a great time working on that, and and he was awesome. One of my good friends, Dean Grimes, was the stunt double for Jeffrey Donovan, the main character who played Michael. So it was great working with Dean, and just and from that working on that has opened up so many other doors, for me since then. So hopefully those will keep opening up. I'll keep booking stuff.
Nice. So you're doing the acting thing. You're still getting in the ring every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I actually took a little time off about 2 years ago because I started getting really bad hip pain in my left hip, and my orthopedic doctor, they x-rayed it. And this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and my doctor said, "Look, you got really bad arthritis in your hip. You need to have hip replacement." And that's like a kiss of death. Like, oh, I'm done if I get that. So I just lived with the pain for about 3 years, and it finally just got so bad where I had to go get it done. So last December, December 15th will be 1 year that I had my new hip, and I can say honestly, I'm so glad I got it done. I have zero pain, which just kind of spurred me to kind of get back in the ring. I mean, I was still in the ring doing it when I was still had this. I didn't really take any time off, but I got to where I really couldn't do a lot in the ring, which is that's like the biggest in the world be able to step in the ring and know you can't do a lot, you know. So, but I still have to be careful with what I do. But yeah, I'm able to get back in the ring. I did the 30-man battle royal up at the Wrestle K the other night, which was just awesome. In the ring with Jimmy Valiant, with you know, who else was in there? Just all the, you know, George South, the Mulkey brothers. I was in there with all these guys. You know, they all look just, you know, just the funniest thing in the world to me. And I'm thinking, man, you know, yeah, they're older than me, but they're not much older than me. but you know, yeah, I mean, so I thank God. I mean, I had a very successful surgery. I have literally no pain in my left hip, and it's allowed me to get back in the ring and do what I so love to do, which is wrestle and hopefully entertain the wrestling fans.
Nice, man. Yeah, man, and we like to be entertained, so we appreciate it. How can you be booked? How can you be contacted for upcoming shows?
Well, I tell you what, I mean, most people can, if you just type in on Facebook, you know, just Ray Lloyd. Usually mine comes up pretty quick, but it's just facebook.com/Ray Lloyd 126. And but you know, through there, I also have my fan page, which is, you know, Ray Lloyd Glacier. And this is one thing that I love to put like an opinion poll out there to your listeners. I've been really throwing around the idea of Shield blog. You know, to really, a couple things. One is, you know, I want there to be a place where young wrestlers who are looking for information, looking for advice, looking for, you know, knowledge, can go to and know they're going to get good, honest advice. And also, anyone that's a wrestling fan, I mean, there's tons of wrestling fans. Every wrestling fan, I think, at some point thinks, man, you know, maybe I should try to go do that. You know? And maybe I want to get in the ring and learn how to do this. You know, so I want to be able to cater to the wrestling fan too, and be able to answer their questions and say, okay, if this is what you want to do, this is what you'll need to do. You know, and know that they can trust what they're being told. So yeah, that's something that I've got a good friend of mine who's a very successful blogger, video blogger, who's helping me get all that going right now. Hopefully within the next couple of months or so, I'm going to be able to launch all that along with the podcast. Dallas Page is one of my best buddies. His radio people that do his podcast are helping me put together an idea for that. So yeah, a lot of good things in the works. You know, and the main reason I'm looking to do it, guys, is because I've been so unbelievably fortunate to learn from some of the very best out there. I mean, from Dusty Rhodes to Lou Thesz to Larry Zbyszko, you know, just so many legendary figures that I feel like, you know, if I don't pass it on, then I'm doing the business that I love so much in injustice. Yeah, and it's service. I want to be able to this service. I want to be able to leave a legacy, so to speak, and say, hey, you know what? I mean, this is what I left for wrestling. You know, it was good to me, and this is what I left as my mark for wrestling. And it's just something I'm very passionate about. So I'm really looking forward to what the next few months will bring to try to get all that together.
If I was going to get into wrestling, I'd have to hit my DDP yoga a little harder.
There you go.
I'd have to drop some weight.
I'm a big advocate of DDP yoga.
I had to drop some weight to get the heavyweight, and whatever weight I lose, Johnny can pick up because he's, you know, a flyweight.
Yeah, we are like complete opposite size guys. Like, so yeah, I can take his weight. Maybe we'll equal out. Maybe be a tag team or something. But of course, man, I think you hit it right in the head. I think every wrestling fan has always thought about, you know, that what if, like, oh, I would love to do that. That's a fantastic idea, right? Doing the video blog. I love it. Yeah, we could put up a poll, like, you know, on our side, whatever you guys need. That'd be fantastic.
I would love to see, you know, what the response would be. And if there's any, you know, I can answer questions directly, I'd love to. This is something that I was approached by some people who really know what they're doing, and their whole thing was like, hey, you already got an audience. You know, we just got to put all this together and put it out. And I was like, well, good. And I don't mean that just being a Glacier audience. I mean just a pro wrestling audience.
Sure.
You know, yeah. Because I'm just, like I said, I'm an equal parts fan as I am wrestler. You know, I really am. I mean, I'm a diehard wrestling fan. Like I said, I was one of the biggest wrestling geeks this weekend at the Wrestle Cave thing, and I'm, you know, I was there making an appearance. I was around. I bought Stan Hansen's autobiography. All the money I made, I ended up buying stuff with.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so fun.
But I think that's something that hopefully will help me as far as reaching out to the wrestling fans or reaching out to anybody in wrestling, whatever level that is, because I just think, that there's, this is something that, there's a whole world of people that love professional wrestling. And if I can be some kind of beacon of hope for anybody, if it's just to find out that this is not what they want to do, because and that's just important to find out. A lot of people out the fantasy of wrestling being all sunshine and rainbows, and it isn't. I mean, it's a very, very tough business, But it's like anything worthwhile that you want to do, whatever your passion is. I mean, it's going to be probably a hard road to hoe, but it's not near as hard if you have the right game plan, and that's what I want to try to help people do is just help them put together a game plan and say, you know what, if you're going to go for this, the odds are very, very long. I mean, this is literally 1 in a million business. The 1 in a million make it, but the thing is you never know if you can be that 1 in a million if you don't try. And the best way to try is to put together a good game plan and go for it, and enjoy the journey. That's the one thing I keep telling all the young wrestlers I talked to this weekend is on the back side of my career now, the one thing that I wish I would have enjoyed more, and I look back and I enjoyed it a lot, but I wish I would have enjoyed it more was the journey. I was so fixated on the destination of doing this full time, getting that contract, that a lot of times I didn't take time to appreciate the journey. And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure that I can help spread that word too is if you decide to go down this road in wrestling, or if you go down any road, whatever, is take the time to enjoy the journey because it is. I mean, it's there's a lot of fun in squeezing 6 guys into a car and everybody's making only $20 for the payday at that, and you're driving down the road and you get home in the middle of the night. There's a big part of it that sucks. So there's a big part of it that's pretty sweet too. That 6 guys are driving down the road doing something they love.
Yeah.
So that's what I just want to let guys know that that's okay. That not only is okay, that's good. That's part of the journey. You're supposed to do that, and that's supposed to sink in. So that's just what I want to do. I want to be able to give that back to the wrestling world, whether it's to the fans, to the wrestlers, whoever.
Ray, have you just a couple more questions. Have you seen NXT at all?
I have. I actually, I just resigned my position. I was working for Full Sail University when I was living in Orlando, and so I got to see a lot of it firsthand. And I still keep in touch with a lot of the guys. Terry Taylor is still a very good friend of mine. Of course, Terry's one of the trainers there. Bill DeMott is a very good friend of mine. But Bill's not there directly anymore. I know. Kip James, I know pretty much everybody involved. I pretty much know. so I'm able to kind of keep but I will tell you this: I was really, really, really impressed. I just went to one of the live tapings about 3 months ago, and I took one of my buddies, one of my childhood buddies. He has 2 sons now, and they were kind of, this is going to be their first live wrestling show ever. So we took them to NXT, and I'll tell you what, I felt like I was able to be a fan again. Because just watching the way they do the show, I can tell, like Terry Taylor, all those guys. I mean, listen, Vince has strategically built his type of product, and there's some of it I agree with, some of it I don't agree with, but it is what it is. But I can watch and I can definitely see those sprinkles of old school that Terry Taylor and Finley and those guys, Steve Regal throw in there, and I think that's just great. And same thing, and this is the one thing I tell everybody that, I mean, NXT at any given time has anywhere from 60 to 80 athletes on their roster, guys and girls. There's only going to be about maybe 10% of those 60 to 80 that make it to the show, make it to the next level. Only about 10%. The rest of them are never going to make it. Nobody's ever going to see them on that national stage or the international stage. But that's okay. Okay, if they don't go any further than NXT, at least they had that experience of NXT. Whereas 3 or 4 years ago, they wouldn't even have had that, and it was either all or nothing. Now you have, this is like AAA, AAA baseball, and in AAA, still only a small percentage get called up to the show. Same thing with NXT. There's only going to be a certain percentage that get called up, but that experience that they get to have while in NXT is invaluable, and you're not going to get it anywhere else in the world. And once again, that's a part of the journey, because you can screw up a little bit there, and they can fix it, and you can keep moving forward. And you're not on the WrestleMania stage.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great thing. I think Triple H is, to really be commended for taking that brand and really building it the way he wanted to build it. And I think the people who win are the athletes that are there for NXT, but especially the wrestling fans that come to see it right there in Orlando. Because in most of those, of course, are local, within the Central Florida area. But young and old, a chance to experience what they experienced probably 30 years ago. You know, when Dusty and Flair and those guys were killing it with the Florida Championship Wrestling. To me, it's the new age Florida Championship Wrestling, and it's a great attraction for Orlando. You know, outside of all the other stuff that they offer, that's just another thing that makes Orlando a great place to go visit.
Yeah. Some of our friends were taking bets on how long it would take me to mention Kevin Owens, because I think he's probably the best guy out there right now. He's the number one heel. He's just so hot on the mic. He's just fantastic. Did you ever have any chance meeting with him?
You know, I haven't, but and of course I've asked about Kevin because you know, hey, I like what he does too, and you know, I found out once again, you know, his overnight success took about 10 years. You know, I mean, he didn't just stumble into NXT. I mean, he had to work his butt off to get there, and you know, from what I understand, you know, he was pretty much a hardcore, foul-mouthed heel before, and you know, they really just kind of they molded him into what he is right now. But you know, he's earned that right to be there. You know, they didn't just discover him sitting in some Waffle House somewhere. You know, I mean, he's earned the right to be there, and that's the one main thing that I think NXT shows the world is that yes, you can get a break, but you got to put the work in too. You know, you know, if you think you're going to go out there and go to wrestling school and learn 10 easy wrestling lessons and get discovered, it just ain't going to happen like that. I don't care who you are. That being said, if you do have the talent, if you do have the ability, if you do have the it factor, which is what Dusty always used to call it, which is really having charisma, you know, then maybe, just maybe you have a shot, maybe. But it's you know, there's a lot of things that have to align for anybody, even a Kevin Owens, to get to that spot where he is now. And I'm sure the first person who would tell you that would be Kevin Owens, because it's hard. It's hard to get there, and he's there, and I guarantee you, he's fighting tooth and nail to make sure he keeps that spot too.
Yeah. Awesome, Ray. Well, man, I think it's awesome what you're doing. Your next step here with the video blogging stuff and all the inspiring advice, I think it's just phenomenal. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I look forward. Yeah, man, I look forward to seeing the end result here. Before we let you go, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Anything you want to plug before we end? Anything booking wise coming up? Anything you got in the pot?
Yeah, well, you know, first I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, you know, I'm doing a lot right now. Now that I'm back here, I'm doing a lot with Luke Gallows, or Doc Gallows, you know, who's now with part of the Bullet Club in New Japan.
Oh yeah,
he lives here in Atlanta, and he's married to Amber O'Neal. I'm helping them really build his company that's been about a year old now. It's called Wrestle America. I'm working on all the shows with them. So if anybody's in the Atlanta, South Carolina, North Carolina area, we're getting ready to expand into the Carolinas. Definitely come check us out, because it's about as close a thing as you'll find on the independent level to a big type show. You know, I mean, you know, Doc does a great job of bringing in some great talent. He just brought in Ken Anderson on our last show about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, so definitely keep a lookout for Wrestle America. Just finished a film that'll be coming out in the spring called Slaw. It's a film me and Kevin Nash made some appearances in as ourselves. It's a comedic parody off of the Saw movies, kind of like the scary movie, The Three. You know, hopefully that'll actually be as funny as it sounds like it should be when it comes out. Yeah, and I'm just doing a good bit of TV and film appearances. So if you happen to see a TV show and see somebody that looks like Glacier, there's a good chance it probably is me. So
nice.
You got to put the one ice blue contact in.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely slip that in every time I can.
Yeah, that'll give it away.
but yeah, and I tell you what, guys, honestly, if you could do some kind of a poll, a question poll, to find out if this is something that wrestling fans or anybody in the wrestling business would at any level would be interested in, and two, please have your listeners put down what things they would like to see covered. Because that's one of the big things I'm looking for. Is I know what I think people want to hear me cover, but I mean, I'm always open to whatever the wrestling, what I call the Glacier Nation wants to talk about. But I really appreciate you guys having me on, and anytime you have a spot, please, I'd love to come back and pick up where we left off.
Awesome, appreciate it, man. We got to give a quick shout out to our mutual buddy Vanessa Lebrecht for hooking this up.
Absolutely.
She's amazing. She's such a sweetheart. She's such a cool chick, and I was blown away when she asked me. It's a funny story. She asked me like a year ago that she was like, when she found out that I was into pro wrestling, she said, "Do you know the wrestler Glacier?" And I went, "Yes," like I absolutely do. And I was like, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm friends with him." And I was like, "That's incredible." And she told me about how you guys met and how you guys have kept in contact through social media and stuff. And so I had dinner with her the other night, and I just went out on a limb, and I was like, any chance you can get Ray to do the podcast, and I was thinking like, hey, just at your leisure, maybe just shoot him a message sometime. And she immediately took out her phone, and she's such a sweetheart, and hooked it up. So big shout out to Vanessa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love Vanessa. What a great girl.
Yeah,
she really is.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So, are you on Twitter at all?
I am. I'm on Twitter at I am Glacier.
Perfect.
And I'm getting ready to finally get an Instagram account. Like I said, my friend who's in this whole world of this is setting all that up for me as we speak.
Excellent. Sounds good. Cool. So that's where you guys can reach Ray Lloyd, aka Glacier. Check him out on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. You can check me out on Twitter at Johnny Fashion. Harmon, where you at?
I'm at Harmon316.
All right, you guys can check out our show. Yeah, you like that, right? Harmon316, yeah. You guys can check us out, smarkandmark.com, and on Twitter at smarkandmark_PW. All right, well, Ray, again, thank you so much.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
All right, peace out, y'all.